What are your thoughts on phasing out the income tax and/or tax on personal property? Please expand on how the budget would be balanced if they are phased out.
Thank you for this question. We hear this a lot from the other side, that they're going to eliminate the income tax, and it's an easy way to win votes because people don't like paying their income tax, generally speaking. But that tax accounts for 56% of our state revenue. Eliminating the income tax would blow an $11 billion hole into an $18 billion budget. Kansas already went down this path. He has the same economic advisor as Bob Stefanowski, the Republican running for governor. And when they did this, they couldn't keep schools open for 5 days a week. They couldn't keep their teachers above the poverty line. I don't know about you, but my family moved to this community because of our excellent schools. I think that's part of what makes Connecticut such a great place to live. I think eliminating the income tax would absolutely be a mistake. There are areas to reform our tax structure. For instance, I'm open to a reduction in the estate tax, but I think the best way to build our economy for the next 20 years is not to revert to an economic policy from the last 20 years. It's to instead invest in the next generation of workers, the next generation of small businesses, the next generation of entrepreneurs. Rather than, we would lose so much money, $11 billion from eliminating the income tax. I'd rather spend some money investing in a student loan forgiveness program that gave students a break as they graduated from college and helped them to start their careers, their small businesses, their families here in Connecticut.
All right, Ms. Boucher.
Connecticut was the #1 state in the country for its low costs, its best education, the best quality of life. It did not have a state income tax, but yet it made its budgets, and it didn't have deficits. We can phase out the income tax and make ourselves competitive again, but in order to do that, it has to cut costs, and some of the ways to do that would be pension, wage, and healthcare reform. They are so expensive. In fact, this governor and the majority Democrats increased the costs even further through a union contract that was ratified last year on a straight party line vote. This contract was a 10-year contract. Our local police, fire, and teachers do not ever have a 10-year contract. In fact, if we just benchmark the state employee contracts with our local police, fire, and teachers, we could balance the budget. They not only had a 10-year contract, a 4-year no layoff, a 4-year no outsourcing, lump sum bonuses, and 2 rounds of pay increases that amount to $353 million by the year 2021. This is unaffordable. It's created deficits. It's put so many more taxes on the shoulders of the remaining people that are here. It is no secret that people and jobs are leaving. It's no secret that 80% of jobs lost at the Great Recession have been recovered, and yet our neighboring states, Massachusetts, has recovered 300%. By all measures, we're at the very bottom of economic rankings, and everywhere I go, people are concerned about their home values being lost.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's time. Same question to Mr. Tartell.
So, excuse me. So the state income tax needs to be maintained. It accounts for about 50% of the revenue for the state, and so you cannot make a tremendous cut in that because of the size of that tax. The fixed costs that we have to carry with the pensions that have been underfunded since 1939. So there's a reason why Weicker put in the income tax. He looked at what we were having in revenue. He looked at what the pensions needed to have in place to be fully funded, and he said, we don't have enough money. So if you remember, we had a sales tax that was over 8%. We went down after the income tax came in. We had property taxes that were higher. They were, because we only had sales tax and property tax, they dropped after the income tax went in. I'm not going to say that we can't do things to put things into different perspective and manage it a little bit better, but it's not around the income tax. I suggest that we make specific changes in terms of pension reform. We can negotiate with the union. The Janus decision with the Supreme Court gives us more opportunity to do that. And union members live in Connecticut. They know the issues we're facing, so that gives us additional ways to address that issue. We need to do that sort of thing.
All right, Mr. O'Day.
Yes, thank you. So this is why I'm running, okay, and this is why I ran. Since 1990, Connecticut has added the fewest jobs in the country, okay? since Connecticut's gross state product is the only one with a negative growth in the last 10 years. We've had flat population since 1990. That's outrageous. And the reason why is because we've had one-party rule for 38 of the last 40 years. Not to pick on my Democratic friends down here, but you're much different than the Democrats up in Hartford. I'm telling you right now, we were not allowed to be in the discussions over the budget for essentially 38 of the last 40 years. The only reason we had a balanced, no tax increase budget the last 2 years ago was because we had enough numbers for them to invite us into the room and negotiate. We passed the first Republican budget that was vetoed. We got Democrats to come on board. The first bipartisan budget in almost 40 years. So what I'm saying to you is, if you think the state has been well run since 1990, you think your house is overvalued, and you think you're undertaxed, vote for my opponent. If you want more bipartisanship, if you want to increase jobs in the state of Connecticut, if you want another bipartisan budget, if you want bipartisan legislation, please elect me to go to Hartford. I'm a deputy leader, the only one to come from Wilton and New Canaan. I'm a deputy leader. I review all screening, all bills, along with Ms. Lavielle, and we literally have stopped hundreds of tax increases, and I ask you to let us do it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. That's time, I'm afraid. Ms. Thomas.
I actually don't think taxes are the issue. When I talk to people at the doors, almost everyone says they would not mind paying taxes if it went to where it's supposed to go. So that's a management issue that has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. But now we are in a mess. Stefanowski, I think his campaign said just yesterday that, oh, we can't actually cut the income tax, but we want people to know we're aspiring to do it. And even if we don't make it, if we do something, they'll be happier. And maybe that's true. So we definitely, given the budgetary shortfalls, we won't be able to do that. I don't think anyone answered the personal property tax side of the question, but I'm not sure what Mr. Lamont is proposing would work in full as well, but at least he has proposed some solutions of where that money would be offset. I know that a lot of things have not worked. I don't think the corporate welfare has worked. I'm in favor of just really a line-by-line audit, comprehensive tax policies, looking at what incentives are out there. Oh my gosh, time goes fast. What tax credits are out there, and really think about where we can solve this problem, because this political sound bites, it's just fiction, and we have to solve it for real.
Thank you. Ms. Lavielle.
Thank you, and I won't repeat a lot of what's been said, but we can't do anything like this overnight. You can't do any of this kind of thing overnight. The state hasn't been well managed. Ms. Thomas has mentioned management, and when you are managing an entity this large well, you have to look at reducing taxes while you look at reducing spending, while you are trying to engineer some economic growth. And you have to do it all at once, at the same time, but not in one fell swoop. It takes time. My preference is to start with the taxes that put the most pressure on retirees, because they are the ones who feel so much pressure, especially when they're on a fixed income, estate tax, gift tax, pension income tax, Social Security income tax. Start there. And then over time, if things are being managed well, if we are reducing spending and we are reducing taxes and we are growing the economy and bringing more jobs here and growing the tax base, then we can look at reducing the income tax over time as tax base growth and spending reductions permit. And we would try to get to a level where Connecticut is more attractive from that point of view than our neighboring states of Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, et cetera. That's what I think we ought to be aiming for.
Okay, at this point, I will ask if anybody on the panel wishes to rebut or extend. Yes, sir.
So this is the most important issue that you all need to be voting on, okay? At the end of the day, here's what I propose. I propose a 20% cut across the board in every department except for Judiciary and Department of Developmental Services, okay? Those two departments are already cut to the bone, and we can't afford it. But that 20% cut will give us $2 billion, okay? With that money, about $650 million I'd use to cut, eliminate the tax on Social Security. We've already eliminated for some levels, eliminate across the board. Eliminate the tax on pensions. Okay, eliminate the gift tax. If you do those things, immediately Connecticut becomes the best place to die. Now, I'm not looking forward to making Connecticut the best place to die, but it's a first step, because then, once you go there, you start reducing taxes and you increase jobs, decrease regulation. When I was on the Reg Review Committee, we passed a new law that requires Reg Review to review all regulations instead of having it passed around. So we have more regulations now. Every year they grow. I'm telling you, please elect me come November. I promise you, better times are coming.
Sorry, time. Any other rebuttal or extension on the tax question? Yes, sir.
Tartell?
All right, Mr. Tartell?
So you drop $2 billion out of the budget. 42% of the budget is for fixed cost. So think of what happens when you take basically a 20%, a 10 to 20% cut out of the available income, and think of what it means for your schools. Think of what it means for the infrastructure and the investments that need to be made there. So we've seen with corporations that guys who come in and cut and slash, those corporations rarely turn around and make the strategic decisions they need to have. You need to make strategic decisions, you need to make hard decisions, and there are taxes to eliminate. I agree with Tom on gift tax and and estate tax, but that's 1% of the budget. That's not $2 billion. That's $200 million. And so there, you then make considered changes to make the investments we need to have to take us forward.
And that's time also. Yes. All right, Ms. Boucher.
Thank you very much. We should remind everyone that the income tax was a temporary tax. The real estate conveyance tax was a temporary tax. The increase in the gas tax was temporary. The business entity tax was temporary. And yet they become permanent, and our fringe costs during that same period of time, when we extended taxes, fringe costs have gone through the roof. 85% of a salary is the current fringe cost, when it used to be 40% of a salary. We're so out of line with the rest of our neighboring states, just in New England, not even the rest of the country. We have to do something about this to make the state more affordable, because everyone I visit when I go door to door, they mention taxes, home values dropping, and job loss is their number 1, 2, and 3 concern. So we must approach that, and we can do that if we reduce the very high fixed costs. We can do that by lowering those wage contracts, getting the health care plan that the state employees have in line. $2 for any prescription drug, $15 for any doctor they go to, and finally, no copay.
Okay, sorry, but that's time. Anybody else willing to rebut on the tax question? I point. Mr. Haskell, do you want to rebut? Okay.